and editor extraordinaire of Rank and File magazine. So say hi, Kari.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to share my story and just to chat with all of you.
Awesome. Okay, I was just looking at the page and I think we are live. So just let me know if you can hear us, you guys, when you're tuning in. And thanks so much, Kari, for coming on the show. We actually had you booked a little while ago because we've been doing some interviews since the beginning of the year. And unfortunately, we had to reschedule and because I was so excited to have you on. But now we have you. So that is the best part.
Yeah, finally. Thank you so much for taking the time to include me and to reschedule. I've been in the middle of a move. I'm moving to Oslo, Norway, and so things are a bit hectic, but I'm so excited that I could find the time.
Yes, totally. Moving across continents is never an easy task. So glad you could make it. So yeah, let's kick things off and kind of get going. And also, I should just mention for anybody watching live in the chat to pop in your questions as well as we get started. So I'll be asking the ones that are on my mind, but of course we have Kari here and would love to give you the opportunity to ask her questions as well. So I like to kind of start things off to get a glimpse into you as a person and who you are and what your life is like. So I'd love to ask you to share what is your ideal day? What does that day look like? And it might be different now that you're moving, but in general.
Yeah, so I think, with starting any company, the ideal day is it's harder to answer that question because when you start a company, no day is the same. Some days you're working on a new project and it's really exciting and it's all new and you're, figuring out how to fix a problem or launch something. Other days you are putting out a fire and you're up at 2 a.m. and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to fix this before like 7 a.m. And other days, you're just doing these mundane tasks, where it's not so glamorous and you feel like you're sitting there with an axe and you're just like doing the same thing over and over and over again, hoping for like that tree to kind of fall down per se. And then other days you get to use your flexibility to, take that call in the middle of the day from a friend who needs you that you wouldn't be able to do, if you're sitting in a cubicle, in corporate America. So I think for me, it's not necessarily, the ideal day. I can't like put it into a box. I enjoy the change. I enjoy that every day is a new challenge and every day looks differently. I have to say that what I try to do is just to maintain a sense of balance. Because it's really easy to become a workaholic as an entrepreneur or a business owner, or especially someone who's trying to make an impact with their business, because we're so connected to them. They're such a part of who we are and such a part of our story and our hearts. And so we can kind of lose ourselves, I think, or, if we're not careful, we can kind of lose sight of who we are as an individual. And so I try to really maintain balance. And if I can maintain balance, then that's like a job well done for me. So if I can, wake up inspired and work hard and still find time to remember who I am and remember those personal relationships, and I can go to bed thankful at night, then that is, a job achieved. And I think, a big thing that I've learned over the last year, because I started Rank and File about a year ago, was something that someone in an interview for Rank and File once told me. It was my interview with Dan Miller and Jared Angaza. They're a father and a son, and they both have started and run social good companies. And they told me that, Kari, you need to try to have what they call a full life. So okay. They told me you need to, first of all, you need to try to find joy in these mundane tasks. these things that are just part of growing a social enterprise and growing a company. But you also need to try to find some efficiencies. You need to kind of draw that line in the sand where you say, like, I'm going to find ways to finish my job and finish it on time and within sort of these boundaries, so that you can make time for other things in your life. And that's something that I'm still working on. It's sort of like a practice that you have to learn and grow as you go. But living a full life, no matter what that means, no matter what it looks like, that's the ideal day.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Way to distill it down into, one sentence. And I think the cool thing about thinking of it that way is that, like you kind of alluded to, that means different things to different people. But in the end, if you have that balance and that creating some boundaries, because like you said, if you're working on a social enterprise, you feel very passionately about the progress that you want to make. And so sometimes it is hard to put the brakes on and create those times of non-work where you can live the other full aspects of your life, right? So
yeah, exactly. I think another great way to think about it is Jared on Gaza the Sun. He's extremely passionate. He moved himself to I think Rwanda or somewhere in Africa, and it was really trying to make a difference and was pouring his whole entire self into the social impact space. And he told me that he couldn't actually make an impact like he wanted to until he realized that his company was not who he was. And he told me that, I needed to think of my company in a very healthy way. He told me that I needed to think about the entity of the company as just a project. And so that's really helpful for me because, sometimes my company can become who I am. And, but really, we use our passions, and we use this heart that we have to make the world a better place and to have an impact. And we use all of those things to start impactful projects and to run them, and even sometimes to end them. But the company itself, it's not who we are. And so I think I always have to remind myself that even though I'm like pushing for this project, like it's not who I am. And so, I hope that's a really, I think, a good piece of advice he gave me that helps me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So easy to forget when you're working on your own baby, right? There's that saying kind of in the startup space, like, never call my baby ugly. This idea that the thing that you're creating, the solution that you're trying to put out into the world, sometimes it's not quite the right thing, but you don't need to, it's not a proxy for you. And it's okay if your baby is ugly, and you can create a new baby that can be beautiful and impactful, so it's a funny metaphor, but I think it kind of speaks to that as well, that, you need to be able to have some flexibility to create and not feel like you're losing a piece of yourself either.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay. So you shared so much good insight already, and I didn't even get to ask you yet about your baby, your project. So I know that a lot of people in the group already are familiar with Rank and File because you've, in this short year, done an amazing job of getting it out into the world and in front of change makers, aspiring and current alike. So would love for you to just share, for those of you who aren't familiar with Rank and File, what is it all about, and why did you start it?
Yeah, so I actually have not shared why I started it before. It's not anywhere on my website. It's not anywhere yet. So this is actually the first time I'm ever sharing it
Wow.
to anyone other than interviewees, because I always share it with the people I'm interviewing, because it's the only way that I can explain it so that, Rank and File makes sense. And so, like I think a lot of social entrepreneurs, our companies are the reflections of something that happened to us in our lives, some crazy journey or some aha moment or some wrong that we want to right. And so my purpose, it actually really came about in the middle of the ocean. on a mega yacht, actually, which is kind of funny. And it started about 6 years ago. I had just graduated from hospitality school from Auburn, Alabama. And I was this southern kind of sheltered girl who I hadn't really traveled that much before, to be honest with you. And I also didn't have a job lined up. It was the recession and I was about to graduate. And even though I was a great student, I didn't have that job that I wanted, to have to build my career. And so I took this internship on this mega yacht that my college put me up for. And so I flew out to meet the ship. It traveled all around the world. It went literally to every coast that there is, even into Antarctica. And I volunteered to be the restaurant hostess one day because she just jumped ship. She just decided to leave. And
literally jumped ship.
Yeah. Well, she didn't jump.
Well, not into the ocean, but.
But she wanted to run away from the ship one day when we were in port, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do?" And so I said, well, I'll put my internship on hold and I'll be your restaurant hostess. And so for literally the next 7 months, 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, 7 months, I just smiled at people. I laid napkins on their laps and I just decided I'm going to work really, really hard and this will be my foot in the door. And I ended up getting hired by the company and I was able to travel around the world for several years in a lot of different roles. I had 6 different roles within those 6 years, and I got to travel to 40 different countries and work with people from 30 different nationalities, and it was really amazing. And it started to open up my eyes to the social entrepreneur space because I was meeting a lot of people in one of my tour planning roles who had started social enterprises and who were having these really amazing companies and these projects around the globe. And so I was working in the corporate office actually for the last little bit, and I experienced something that was really life-changing. I experienced a shift in the leadership. And so what really happened is that the board of directors, they came up for re-election, and this mega yacht, it kind of worked like a democracy, like an HOA or a country club would be, where you kind of elect the board to represent your wants and your desires for the community. And so before that, they were really innovative. They were really a creative, collaborative culture. They really focused in on, taking care of people, nurturing their talents. A lot of training and development happened in the company. And they brought in some new board of directors who had a more traditional, like top-down business approach. And it was so fascinating because literally just the change in a few people's mentality, I saw it bring the company to its knees. And it happened really fast. It happened in like 6 months. And wow. I was devastated personally because I had poured everything I had into it, right? Like my job role was who I was. That was the essence of who I was. I was, this role that the world said I was. And so I literally felt like the ladder was like pulled out from under me, like this corporate ladder that you're like trying to climb. And I felt like I was just laying on the ground and, the ladder's like up there and I'm just like down at the ground again. But I didn't like care to get up anymore. And it was so sad. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to be patient. I'm not going to just leave, because all my mentors, all my bosses, everyone was starting to just exit quickly. So I just decided like, I'm going to just observe this with curiosity because I'm experiencing something really powerful here. And even though it's devastating, I'm just going to kind of watch to see what happens. And so I watched with curiosity and I began to ask myself a lot of questions about impact because at that time I was now very, very passionate about social enterprise. And I began to understand for the first time the power of leadership. And the power that it has, deep down in our motivations, our attitudes, kind of what makes us tick. has the ability to build up or to break down. And I became really passionate about this because I was kind of able to take like a leader that had been a mentor to me and then the new bad leader and really put them side by side and kind of look at the differences between them. And there was one major difference, and that was that the leaders that had the ability to actually really inspire and to impact people and to bring like the product and everything and all the impact up to a new level was this belief that people mattered. And this innate, this just torch that they held, that every single person mattered, that they had inherent value, and that they were worth it, and that was really what was the key to all of it. And it wasn't the bottom line, and it wasn't this idea that we're just a machine or that people were dispensable. It was, yes, people truly matter, and so. I knew that I wanted to have this impact in the social entrepreneurship space. And I knew I wasn't going to be this, expert in impact investing, and I wasn't going to be like this supply chain management, extraordinaire who helps people with figuring out fair trade and all this stuff. But I knew that I had experienced this really important lesson, this truth behind servant leadership. And behind this concept that it can have for social enterprises. Because we can get, I think, so caught up in our social causes sometimes that we kind of forget the core of it. And if you think about it, if we take all of our social causes, whether it's, women's rights or whether it's clean drinking water, and we just we start peeling and we start getting deeper and deeper. I think we all as purpose-driven entrepreneurs, we all have to say that no matter our social cause, that we all have to believe that we see good in the world, that we want good for that world, and therefore we want good for the people living in it. And so I think we all can agree that we all believe that people matter and that they're worth it, and that actually people are the entire point of business. And so Rank and File really brings that belief to a business magazine. I think that it's really needed in our space to remain grounded in this reason that we're all in business and that we're all in social impact specifically. And is that belief that people do really matter, that they're worth serving. And so that's really the core of what Rank and File does. We're not an ordinary business magazine. We don't look like an ordinary business magazine. We don't read like one. And that's because we try to, in every single article, we try to serve people. And we try to have this mutual respect, so to speak, where we're talking human to human and we're vulnerable and try to make tools that serve them. And so in Rank and File, you actually won't find any spotlights just for the sake of spotlighting someone. So, sometimes when you open up a business magazine, or if you read even a social impact media site or news site, you'll only see someone reporting on the existence of a great new company. And that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but we're just trying to kind of peel back a little bit more and to try to serve in those moments. So we try to have really vulnerable conversations with entrepreneurs. We try to always find a lesson that can be learned in those and always have this really practical piece of advice. This thing that we're serving you by, we're sharing the story about someone, but there's lessons that you can apply to your life. So we try to break them down in really honest, approachable, ways. We try to, shed light on the human condition, let's say, we always try to find the failure point or these weird twists and turns, kind of like I had, with my disaster in corporate America. We try to find all those little beautiful moments where people can share some really great lesson. And so, yeah, that's why I started Rank and File. That's what we're all about. And, I hope with each piece that we're lifting everyone up, that people feel supported and understood, and they feel like they're smart enough and they're good enough, and, their companies, that they can make a difference with those companies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah, sorry for rambling on. I just love I love storytelling, and I think that it's such a part of like where we come from, and why we start these things. So thanks for letting me ramble on.
Oh my gosh, no, it's wonderful to hear your why and the whole story. And just as you were talking about the goals that you guys have in your communication and how that relates to your experience and your why and how it all fits together, I can see so clearly how that comes through in all of the articles that you prepare in terms of being, human to human and relatable, but also very practical and grounded. And so I think you've done a great job of mixing those things, which are sometimes hard to mix. Like you said, if you look at a regular business magazine, it's very straightforward and losing maybe some of that vulnerability. And sometimes if you go too much to kind of the stories, stories are so powerful, but sometimes we get lost in the emotion and lose the application of these lessons learned. And so I just think it's a wonderful example of how your why is really shining through in your work. And, even though you haven't shared that story on the website per se, or, in an article, it's cool to hear it because it really does translate. So I think that's a wonderful lesson for people. And it's related to that in Changemakers Association, we actually did a workshop a few weeks ago about looking deeper into your why, and I think it is such a worthwhile thing to be really clear on as an entrepreneur, as a social entrepreneur. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I think, on that same point, I think that, it's important to understand your purpose, and to understand why you think the way you think. Because once you can kind of pinpoint it, like once I was able to pinpoint I believe people matter, then you can understand, you can kind of tangibly put that in a mission statement or a purpose statement. And then you can make sure that you carry it out through the operation. Because if you don't really understand tangibly, you probably have some subconscious things happening. But if you don't understand your why and you can't get it down on paper, then it's harder to carry that through the product that you have. Because it's easy, for me, it's really hard to push the interviews and to push the contributor writers, because nobody writes the way that I want them to write, everyone kind of they send me stuff that they think that the media industry wants. So, they do funny things they'll use last names instead of first names. And I'm like, why can't we just, call you by your first name? And they'll use all these very journalistic style approaches. They'll always kind of somehow make it a spotlight about them, even though that's not what it's trying to, we're trying to approach. And so I have to pull vulnerability out of them, and I have to try to make them dig deeper so that they give really specific practical advice. And so all those things are really hard. It's really fun for me because I get to kind of challenge it, but all those things are really hard to do if you can't tangibly understand your purpose and your why for doing it. Because I can always remain grounded in that I have to serve people with this interview. This interview can't be about putting you up on a pedestal, and everyone just looking at you and saying oh, you're so smart, I wish I could be like you. It has to be human to human. And so, I would also encourage everyone to do some sort of practice or workshop or something where you can start to uncover your why and to make it more tangible for yourself.
That's awesome. We may have future things to chat about related to that. Because yeah, so important. But seeing my questions and realizing like I think we covered some of them already. Because as you share your why and your purpose, a lot of the people, sometimes you, because you know the why, and it in some ways, which is interesting to think about. What do I want? Something that you do differently than other people first, and really the pieces that you talked about in terms of have any related the founder that you think you do differently than.
You're breaking up just a little bit, but I think you said that, is there something that I do differently than other founders, right? Okay.
Yes,
so
yes.
Everyone, make sure everyone can still hear us because you're breaking up a little on your end. But I just want to make sure everyone can still.
Okay. I'll just add a little. Yeah, but let's keep going because I can hear you really well.
Okay.
So maybe it's just me.
Okay, perfect. So one thing I think I do differently, I guess, would have to be I interview really differently, and so I have to like preface like my approach before I start asking people questions when I interview them, because I don't ask them normal questions. So I always have to like try to tell them, okay, this is the point of rank and file, this is what I'm trying to achieve, and so I would really like you to come from this vulnerable place. And I actually dig a lot deeper than I think they're used to, because some people are up for it and other people are very, very uncomfortable with it. And so I think that's a challenge. I think it's, something that I'll have to learn as I go, like what the sweet spot is for making someone feel comfortable in a conversation. And also getting them to share their hearts, their lessons learned, their failure points, all of these things. And so, I think one thing that, if I think about the media industry as a whole, I don't have any formal training in publishing. I didn't go to journalism school. I didn't work for a big publishing company. So I actually don't know how it works. I don't even know, like, I'm not approaching it from like this, place of like, this is how it works. This is how, how you do it. And so that's good in a way, because I'm breaking all the rules because I don't know what they are.
Totally.
But it's also a challenge because you can't be a content mill when you take this much extra time to like pull things out of people, and to draw a line from their story to a practical lesson. And so I think that's something that we do differently. We don't put out as much content as a lot of these other sites. And for better or for worse, we're figuring it out. I mean, it's hard to gain traffic as a media company when you don't have a lot of content. Just, it's not a feed like where you can just scroll through and click on something that excites you, and then like kind of scan it and then keep going through the feed. So I think there's a balance there. But I love the fact that we're different and that we're challenging what, even what the social impact media space is doing.
I love how you can't, because you don't know what they're in the first place. I think that's to be. Okay, so you what would you say of experiences to draw on, but has there been any investments either that you've made in yourself or in rank and file that you really are so glad that you made, like they really paid off when you look back? Have you had any?
Yeah, a lot. I think I've done a lot of things terribly, and I'm thankful for those, because I learned a lesson that I wouldn't have learned unless I did it. Sometimes you you can't get away from making a mistake because you just have to walk that road to learn it. But I actually feel like what I want to share right now is something that is not related to rank and file. It was actually before that. And I think one of the biggest investments that I made into myself was listening to podcasts. It was actually before I was, I've always had this interest in entrepreneurship. I've always sort of been this like businessy nerd. But, long before rank and file or this thing happened with me in corporate America, before any of that happened, I just decided, like, I'm going to use my commute to work or my time on the bus or my time in an airport to, like, listen to podcasts and to kind of, like, to build up my knowledge base instead of just, like, looking at, Pinterest or something. And it was actually really powerful. My first podcast I ever listened to was not something social impact based, actually. It was Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income. And when I think back on that, I think that it was a major defining moment for me because I started to invest in myself in that way of like, I'm going to kind of continue to learn. But then he sort of opened my eyes to this concept of like, ordinary people, they can like start companies and they can make a difference in the world and they can make a living off of it. And you don't have to be some like rock star, with this huge capital investment to do something. And so I feel like he was the one who originally kind of opened my eyes and kind of made me feel like, oh, like, you can do this, you can do it. This possibility is there for you. And of course that, snowballed into social impact and all these other things. But at the very beginning, it was just me investing in my continued learning, kind of that idea that I was worth it, that I could do something. And even now, I think that little piece, it's coming through as well in rank and file because we were just accepted. I'm very excited about this. We were just accepted into an incubator program by the Preah Kelt Foundation.
Oh, great.
And what they do is they selected 100 social good companies to be onboarded onto the Free Basics platform, which if you've never heard of Free Basics, it's actually a program by Facebook, surprisingly or not. And what they do is that they are, it's very cool. They are, they're partnering with all these cellular companies in really rural places around the world, places where people don't have access to Wi-Fi and or the data charges are just so high that they literally can't get on the internet. So there's a huge population of the world that has never been online, if you can believe that. They have a cell phone, they have a mobile phone, but they've never been on the internet. And so Facebook's Free Basics by Facebook, this platform, it actually is allowing people with these simple phones to access the Free Basics website for free. And the entire purpose of it is to give really life-giving, simple information to these people who have never read it. And so I'm so like pumped up about this because what we're going to do with Rank and File is that we are going to put up really life-giving basic information related to not only the idea that people matter and that they matter, but also this sort of like smart passive income thing that I experienced was that you can do it. You can make an impact in your little community. You could actually start a business if it's really simple. You know, and just these really basic things, you know, that kind of are the spark to make people just like me, you know, decide I'm going to start a business. I'm going to make an impact. I have something to share. And so Rank and File on Free Basics won't look like the magazine. It'll be a lot more simple. It'll be a lot more, you know, values-based and really stripping it down. But I'm excited about that because I think, you know, I got that chance because I was able to get on my phone, download a podcast, and listen to someone who shared that with me. And just the idea that, Facebook through this program is opening up the internet to, they say, 1 billion new people around the world, which is like crazy. If Rank and File can have an impact from someone who reads, people matter, you matter, you're worth it, you can do something, that would just be like so amazing for me.
That's amazing. Yeah, congrats. That's really exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah. A whole new group of people.
Yeah, and
very cool. Can't wait to see how that turns out.
Yeah, we're just now putting the information on the website, and we're gonna be better once we fully get on the platform about taking people on that journey with us, because what I want to do is really partner with people in the different countries so that we understand what the values are that they're having, like these foundational values that are keeping them from making an impact. Sometimes there's cultural values that are missing that are just standing in the way. And I don't know what those are, in different countries around the world, in different villages around the world. And also, how do we talk to them? That's a huge thing. And how do we translate it into their language? And so we're going to be putting in like these advisors and these roles to kind of help us with how to do that in each place. And it'll be a process, a slow process of adding, one country at a time. The whole program is just very exciting for me.
Wow, that's a huge project. I can only imagine, that's going to be a whole new related piece of Rank and File. That's really exciting. And not just the you can do it messages, but it's the practical and pull in and keep it really simple and country where what pieces of information, knowledge is power, do these groups of people want and need to grow their impact. And they're so cool. I can't wait for you to keep us posted on that. Exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely will.
So we're actually awesome. Later than usual, but that's totally okay because you shared lots of great stories and info with us. So I thought we could just wrap up here and there. And like honestly, you've shared a lot of practical tips already. Your is all about supporting social entrepreneurs in growing their impact. So what would you say, probably have thought of in the work that you do, but what's the one thing you would say to a social entrepreneur just getting started, be struggling to get there off the ground, reflect or do?
Okay, this is a tricky one. Am I allowed to say more than one thing?
Yeah, of course.
So I think, I'm a new entrepreneur, business owner, so I can really relate to the place that I was like even 6 months ago, and even where I am now. Mm-hmm. And I think the first thing I would say would be to just prepare yourself for this emotional roller coaster you're going to go on, because the plan that you have at the beginning is not going to be the plan that is ultimately going to work. I actually interviewed this guy in issue 1. His name's Looney Lives. He has an accelerator program for conscious companies in Seattle. And he was the first one I interviewed, and he poked holes in my company. And I thought he was so mean. And now I'm like, you were a genius and thank you. And he told me that there's a great lesson in business, which is that plan A never works. And that if you look at big companies, successful companies, even Facebook is on plan C. Or PayPal. PayPal is actually on its 7th iteration from what its founders really actually thought it would be in the beginning. And so, I think this kind of ties back into like your company is not who you are. We need to to remind ourselves that we can't be attached to plan A, and that we're going to go through like all these different iterations, and you're going to feel at some point like a complete failure. And you're going to like go through these little roller coaster moments where you're kind of getting from plan A to B and from plan B to C. And there's going to be this moment of time where you feel really demotivated and really down on yourself. And, you know, if you can just cut yourself some slack during those moments and realize like this is just how it goes and this is part of the process, then you can kind of relieve a lot of that pressure off of yourself. The second thing I would say, and I learned this from experience, is to really have a good understanding of costs at the beginning. So before you start out, you need to make a 1 to 2 year budget of the costs that you think that are going to be involved with getting your company off the ground. And also a financial forecast based on what you think your sales versus costs are going to be. And if you need help doing that, get help doing that. Get someone financially minded to help you do that. And then I think you'll come to a realization when you do those two things, which is, can I bootstrap this or do I need to raise capital? And those are two different, very, very different paths for a startup. So if you're going to bootstrap, then great. There's going to be things that cost way more than you thought they were going to cost. And so you need to figure it out so that you can actually make your plan happen accordingly. Things costed a lot more than I thought they would when I first made my first budget. Was like hilarious. Now that I look back at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? And so when you get a good understanding of your budget when you're bootstrapping, then you can make a better strategic plan. And then if you're going to be going down the route of capital, like I need to raise, I have a capital investment in order to make this company work. Do not to do it alone. I dabbled in the entire kind of world of raising capital because I was invited to be kind of sit in as the fly on the wall at this school for social entrepreneurs. They were running a capital raising boot camp. So I got to kind of just like watch and learn, and I wasn't one of the students raising capital. But there are so many nuances, so many particulars of how to raise capital, how to approach it, what kind of legal requirements, financial statement requirements, due diligence, back and forth with closing around, that it's not as easy as just showing up to a pitch session and someone saying, great idea, here you go. And so I think if you're going to go down that road, get into a program, get a mentor who's successfully done it. And if you decide to do one of these online schools or something, just make sure that you are in one that has humans behind it, because along the way, there will be times when a potential investor is asking for something from you or is trying to pull out last minute, and you really need that one-on-one in the moment advisory to help you get through that process. And lastly, I would just say to get help with your weaknesses. I have found so many weaknesses of mine over the last year. And I think, all of us need help, whether or not that's operationally or, something with the industry, like a weird thing that is in our industry that we don't know exactly how to tackle, or operationally. So I think, finding mentors in those 3 key areas is really, really important. I'm trying to still find someone with sales and marketing experience. That's one of the weaknesses of mine. It's not my background. I'm very operational. And so that's someone that rank and file needs. We do have our industry specific knowledge base. So people supporting social entrepreneurs and people in the media publishing industry that actually are not social enterprise related. They're just traditional media, but their insights is really helpful. And so, just go out there, ask people advice. You don't even have to say like, will you be my mentor? Because that's a little creepy sometimes. So you can just say, I need advice, and let it sort of, organically grow into more of a mentorship over time.
Totally. Awesome. That's such good advice. Super practical, on point, on theme with our chat today. Like emotional roller coaster. Done that. I don't think it ends. I'm only a few years further in than you know, in my first initiative as well, and then all the collaborations with Solen, of course, with the lab and change makers. I'm realizing, but that's okay. It's part of the fun.
Yeah, it is.
And it's part of the learning. Learners in general love learning, which is great. Always learning new things, you know, those weaknesses, or finding partners to help fill in those weaknesses. So it's all good stuff. You know, it's really, it's fun. But yeah, so Len says, really, really good at it. And I think we should close up now because we've gone about 45 minutes, which is probably our longest interview so far, but we've covered so much good stuff.
I'm not a woman of few words, so thanks for letting me just spill out all my advice.
No, it's wonderful. I love it. I love it. I love it. So last thing, how should people get in touch with you or stay in touch with you?
Yeah, so I am always hanging out at Rank and File. We have a blog that is actually written by me. It's more of like this personal insight, and so I'm always there. And you can also email me personally. I'll put my email address in the comments. I think I can do that, right, on the video. So yeah. I'll put that there just in case you want to reach out. A Skype session. I love just connecting with people and talking to them. So I would love for any of you to email me anytime.
Awesome. Thank you. That's so generous and so great. And of course, you are technically in the lab as well. So want to be there, that works too. But obviously, to stay in touch with the Rank and File, all the wonderful content. The latest issue just came out this week, recently anyways. So I have it in my tabs to read some of those new articles, which is always a lot of fun. So thank you so much, Kari, for being on the show. It's been great having you. And I had some other updates, but I think I'll save them for a different live because they're related to the group, and I want to make sure this. Thanks for joining, and we'll. Like we had some people popping in and out and so watching, but we actually didn't from the audience. But if you guys are watching this later, feel free to add it into the comments, and yeah, keeping an eye on that, and we can tag you, Kari, if we see a question come in. But yeah, good luck with your move and your travel, and we look forward to keeping the conversation going.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun, and thank you to everyone who is listening. And yeah, I'll definitely be in the group if you have any questions later on if you're watching the recording.
Fabulous. Here today, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.